Welcome, everyone. My name is Phil Gordon. I am the CEO and founder of Prompt.io. I live here in a lovely city of Seattle, where the summer is coming to an end and the rain is just about to start, and it won't stop until March or so. Fun fact about me is that I am a former professional poker player. I used to host a bunch of the TV shows that some of you who are a little bit older may have watched. Including Bravo's Celebrity Poker Showdown. I was also the ESPN poker analyst, and I've written 4 books on the subject. So if any of you are poker players and you'd like a book, please let us know. I'd be happy to get one in the mail to you. So thank you.
Awesome. My name is Brenna. I am a customer success manager here at Prompt.io. However, in my past life, I was a national digital organizer for some different progressive organizations. In the past few years, I've worked on about a dozen political campaigns, from state house races up to a presidential primary, as well as had the opportunity to work for some really awesome advocacy organizations and national nonprofits. So my heart is with y'all running texting programs, and I'm excited to be here at Prompt now. So a little bit of housekeeping. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know your name, where you are, and a fun fact about yourself. And then if you have any questions during the webinar, please use the Q&A or chat function. We will have a Q&A section at the very end of the call to make sure we get all those answered. But when you have it in your mind, go ahead and drop it in the chat or in the Q&A. An agenda for what we're going to be covering today. We're going to start with a background around what 10DLC all is about, deadlines that are coming up, and the costs associated with the registration process. We're going to talk about the requirements and restrictions that are being imposed by the carriers under 10DLC, go through some 5 best practices for getting set up. We'll give you some real world examples because we have clients who are already registered, so we're able to share some information about that, pitfalls and traps to avoid, as well as some success stories. And then we're going to leave you with a checklist of what you'll need to do to make sure that you are fully registered and 10DLC compliant by the deadline. And then, as we said, at the end, a little bit of time for Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, Brenna. So Prompt.io is a texting platform. We service political, advocacy, nonprofit, and commercial organizations. We've been around a long time, since 2014. We are nonpartisan, but we proudly serve progressive organizations up and down the ballot out of our headquarters here in Seattle. We are a remote first organization, so we've got people pretty much spread out around the world. 5 different countries, and it's a lot of fun to see this remote team work together. We do provide both A2P and peer-to-peer texting capabilities, and we work not only in 10DLC, but also toll-free and short code. So no matter what your texting needs are, Prompt.io can get it done.
So we'll talk a little bit about those different types of texting codes next. So first, we've got our short codes, which are high volume. Big campaigns tend to use them with large reach and big organizations. These tend to be more notification based, and there's less back and forth conversation. They are fantastic, but they are expensive to set up, and opt-ins are required. Next, you have toll-free phone numbers. Again, opt-ins are required for toll-free phone numbers. There are not any exceptions for that as of at this moment in time. They are high throughput, relatively easy to deploy, but they can be a little bit less personal because you're texting from an 800 number as opposed to a local area code. And then today we're fully focused on 10 DLC or 10-digit long codes. These are going to be the local area codes. So I'm in Seattle, for example, so I might text the 206 number. These are usually used for the peer-to-peer use case. Starting October 1st, which we're doing right now, registration is going to be required, and verification for political use cases are going to be required as well. These are fantastic. They're more personal and much more conversational than the other types of phone numbers that you can use.
So 10-digit long code is like texting over a local area code. And this is all about registering the organization so the carriers know who your organization is and how you're using texting on their network. Interestingly, the carriers themselves believe that all traffic that is sent over this 10DLC is considered A2P traffic. They don't care what we in the industry call peer-to-peer. That has no meaning to them. It's very confusing, but at the end of the day, all traffic sent over 10DLC is considered A2P traffic. You still have to do the manual sending in our peer-to-peer world, but the carriers still view that as application to person. It's a software program sending text. And this 10DLC stuff does not apply to toll-free or short code, and it does not apply if you're sending text to non-US based carriers. Unregistered traffic is currently allowed, but there are penalties and deliverability issues that result. We'll talk more about that in a little while. This is not legal advice. We're going to talk to you about becoming 10DLC compliant, but we're not your lawyers. The TCPA and other federal, state, and provincial statutes still apply. So our COO will be very happy that we showed this slide, and we advise you to consult with your own legal advisor in the space if you need to.
Alrighty, so the registration process for texting use cases is not completely new. If anybody has ever worked with a large organization or a large campaign and has used a short code, you've gone through a much more intensive process to get through vetting and registration. So when you're registering a short code, which you'd see like text join to 12345, in order to get that short code, you're going to take about 2 to 3 months to go through vetting and provisioning and spend thousands of dollars on this. So 10DLC registration is going to have a few similarities, but it is not nearly as involved as getting a short code. So why are carriers expanding this registration requirement from short codes to 10DLC? Really, the fact of the matter is that everyone who works in this space uses texting. So texting is a really effective and a really efficient way to communicate with people. So lots of people are using this, and we've seen really high traffic, especially over the 2020 election cycle, using texting. So the carriers want to ensure that they're protecting their network and their customers from bad actors to minimize the smishing schemes that are happening via text message, making sure that they're getting transparency into what organizations are sending over their network to their customers. And then at the end of the day, they'll also be making a little bit more money from this increased traffic as well. However, that's what's going to benefit the customers and the carriers, but there are upsides for you too. So yes, it's going to take a little bit more time to get set up with texting. In the past, we've been able to set somebody up in a matter of hours. It can take up to 2 weeks to get texting spun up now. However, you're going to have the confidence that your messages are actually getting delivered. You are not going to see carrier filtration like you have in the past. In addition to that, you're going to have higher throughput, which means more messages can go out more efficiently on fewer phone numbers. And then long-term, customers are going to have a lot more confidence in the texting space, which will result into better and more engagement through your texting campaigns. So why is this 10DLC registration important? First and foremost, starting October 1st, which is Friday, unregistered 10DLC traffic may be aggressively filtered, blocked, and subject to fines and penalties and high surcharges. This is really going to hit hard early next year. By February 2020, we're anticipating unregistered texting might be prohibitively expensive. AT&T is likely to begin charging 4 cents per segment for unregistered traffic. And keep in mind that a segment is 160 characters. Your texts are normally longer than that. So you could be seeing 8, 12, 16 cents in just charges on top of your basic texting costs. So why are you wanting to register? Again, improved deliverability. The days of carrier filtration are going to be in the past. Higher throughput, so you aren't going to have nearly as many phone numbers as you used to have, and those phone numbers will be able to send more messages per second. You may still get charged for messages that are being blocked by carriers, but you will not see nearly the rate of filtration that you've seen in the past. And then there's the potential for lower per segment network access fees as compared to unregistered traffic.
Yeah, and so when you're thinking about this 10DLC stuff, and this is real, we have customers today that we'll talk about in a little while that are actually fully registered, end-to-end compliant, that are getting amazing results. It's important to understand who the players are, and so this slide sketches out, some of the ways that that this ecosystem is put together. So at the left side here, you see your brand or your organization, and confusingly, the campaign registry. Or the industry has called your use case a campaign. So you could actually be a political campaign with a campaign use case, or you could be a commercial organization, or a PAC or a nonprofit with a campaign as a use case. So And the registration authority is known as the campaign registry. They are the organization that's set up by the carriers that is in charge of managing all of the registrations. Also, there's another organization called Campaign Verify. This organization is formed and its sole purpose is to vet and verify a political campaign as a legitimate political campaign. We'll talk a little bit more about that verification process in a bit. We are known in the industry as a CSP, or a campaign service provider. There are also DCAs like Twilio or SignalWire that provide the connectivity. And then at the end of the day, all those messages are getting delivered to what the industry calls the MNO, AT&T, T-Mobile. So at the, just important to understand who the players are. Go ahead.
All right. So we're going to cover costs really quickly because we know that budget is always at top of mind. So there are a few different kinds of fees that are going to be your organization will be faced with. The first ones are registration fees. Then you'll have ongoing monthly fees, and then finally per segment network access fees. We're going to talk about vetting fees in here. Vetting fees are going to vary depending on your use case. Since we're talking about political organizations, the one we're going to talk about is specific to PACs, campaigns, state parties, those types of things. But other organizations will have opportunities to do vetting as well. So the first fees you'll see are your registration ones. So if you are already registered, you paid $4 for your one-time campaign registration brand fee. Starting on October 1st, you'll be faced with a $50 T-Mobile registration fee as well. If you get your registration in today or tomorrow, you will not have to pay that $50 to T-Mobile. The next fee is that one-time campaign verify fee, vetting fee. If you are a PAC, political campaign, state party, you'll pay $95 before we're able to complete campaign registry for that vetting. If you are a union, a nonprofit, something along those lines, we don't have to get you vetted up front. However, there's the opportunity to go through additional vetting after you've been registered to increase your messaging caps and your throughput, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But not everyone will be faced with the $95 campaign verify fee, depending on your use case. Next, you'll have your recurring fees. So it's between $4 to $10 per month to keep you registered with campaign registry. As a political use case, you're going to be looking at $10. But if you are a nonprofit or something along those lines, it can vary between $4 to $10. And then finally, this is going to be attached to each segment that you send. There is going to be a 0.2 to 0.4 charge every time you send a text. And that is based on the carrier you're texting into. For MMS, it's 1 cent per carrier, or 1 cent per message for MMS. And then finally, there are additional fees for higher usage organizations that can be assessed by carriers. So some of these that have been thrown around have been based on the number of phone numbers or channels that you use if you exceed 49. These have not all been fully fleshed out by the carriers yet. Things are still a little bit in flux, but just keep in mind there might be some high fees depending on how much you are sending out for text messaging.
Cool. And the deadlines are rapidly approaching. So Campaign Verify is up and running today. We have successfully navigated that process for candidates up and down the ballot, everyone from state parties down to city council races. And as of August 12th of last month, political campaigns and PACs can be fully registered on Campaign Registry. So that's all been very good. As of October 1st, which is just a few days from now, unregistered traffic can be heavily filtered and blocked and will face very high or higher per segment access fees. And of course, the T-Mobile is instituting their $50 registration fee as of October 1st. So just a few more days to get registered, but and after that, it's going to be much more difficult to run unregistered traffic. On February 1st, 2022, wow, yeah, AT&T has indicated that they will be instituting a very, very high per segment access fee for unregistered traffic. So we've got a little time. Unregistered traffic is going out. Registered traffic is getting really great results. And basically, this October 1st deadline for most organizations, the extra $50, isn't that big a deal. But for unregistered traffic, you will start seeing additional per network access fee or per segment access fees starting in just a few days. After registration, when you send a text, right, you're going to send it through prompt.io, we hope, if not, whoever you're using. And those texts are sent on a 10DLC phone number, equipped phone number, and that's usually through like an aggregator or through one of these companies like SignalWire or Twilio, right? And what happens here underneath the hood is that that phone number will be associated with the campaign registry tokens and a campaign verify token for political traffic. And when that text is sent, it's sent down to AT&T with all that information intact. And so AT&T knows for sure, based on the brand token, the campaign token, and the verification token, that your organization is legitimate. And therefore, they can send that traffic through vetted, approved pathways, and you'll get near 100% deliverability. So we get a lot of questions right now from organizations up and down the ballot about not registering. And what I've been counseling them on is, I think you should register. I think that registration is very much in your best interest. Sending unregistered traffic is currently allowed, but it is not encouraged and not best practice. You are almost certainly going to get more heavily blocked and filtered, especially after October 1st, and especially content with links. I know a bunch of you really like to send links in your texts, and that's going to become a problem if you're sending unregistered, especially on T-Mobile. T-Mobile carrier access fees. This is just breaking news. They had intended on increasing it to 0.013 on October 1st, but they delayed that, and I believe that it's going to be 0.004. This stuff changes just about every week. But the unregistered traffic will be subject to higher per network access fees as of October 1st. It just may not be as high as we initially thought it would be, or as they've been telling us. And of course, we've already talked about AT&T in January or late January, or early February 2022. And unsupported traffic, we've got no real pathway to support or appeal from the carriers. If you start getting blocked, there's nothing we can do about it, right? There's just, you're unregistered. They don't want unregistered traffic. I can't call up AT&T and say, what the heck, AT&T, you're blocking my text. That's just not going to work. They're going to say, register your traffic, and maybe we won't block it. Of course, if you're unregistered, you still get charged for attempted delivery of messages that are carrier filtered. So yes, of course, you can choose to ignore all of these things, and you can send unregistered traffic. But there are real benefits to being registered. Okay, so if you are a political consultant and you're handling registration for more than one organization, we got some ideas on how this works. And we work with lots of political consultants in exactly this capacity. So the number one thing is you're going to need to register each organization or candidate individually. They are the ultimate users of the 10DLC, and the campaign registry wants that traffic registered under the politician, not under your political consultancy shop. If you try to register your own brand as a digital agency, you're going to get a very poor score. And this is against best practice, and you're just going to get shut down. And once you get shut down, all of your texting is going to get shut down, no matter what candidate it's going out for. So each of your candidates or organizations need their own segregated numbers for texting. It is not possible, as you saw a couple of slides ago, each phone number is associated with an individual brand and individual campaign. It is not possible to share numbers across multiple brands or across multiple TCR campaigns. That is not going to work. And I think you should take a little time. It's going to take a little time to get you guys registered. The campaign verify process can be a little painful in some instances at the state level. At the federal level, it's usually taking like 1 day. At the state and local level, we've had candidates that have had to get tokens mailed to them, actual US mail. Yes, I know it seems crazy. And in some instances, that's taken like 10 days. So take a little time it's going to take a little time to get you onboarded and registered with Campaign Registry. Federal is going to be a lot faster than state and local in some instances, but we've had some state and locals go in as little as 2 days. And of course, the costs are going to be a little bit higher due to registration and verification fees. But I think if you're sending any kind of volume, it's going to be basically break even or even better, because you're not going to get the carrier filtering that leads to undelivered text that you were charged for. As we are submitting information to the campaign registry, and I'm proud to say that Prompt.io is a full partner for campaign registry, and I believe that we are the first campaign service provider or technology provider in this space to be fully end-to-end compliant. We have invested an enormous amount of money and resources in making sure that the software works end-to-end and is fully integrated with the campaign registry. The big thing that we'll need to get you guys registered not only is brand address and things like that, but also the employer identification number. For some of our organizations, they need to track that down. Usually something that they can track down quite easily, but that's like really the only bit of information that's kind of unique that you might not expect that we would need. And then on the campaign verify process, at the federal level, we'll need your federal election commission ID. That's very easy to find. At the state and local level, this is where it gets a little tricky. At the state and local level, we'll need to find some web address for the state or the county election commission that lists your candidate or your cause, along with either an email address. We hope there's an email address listed, or a snail mail address. And those email addresses or that snail mail address is where the token's going to get sent. Anyway, it's a pretty straightforward process to get verified and to get registered, but there's just a little bit of information that's necessary there. Brenna and I have had a hard time tracking down that. It can take us 30 minutes sometimes to try to find the right website for those state and local elections. The federal stuff's cakewalk. All right. And again, we are a full registry partner with Campaign Registry. We're in constant communication with TCR, like literally a dozen times a day, and the carriers. And we pride ourselves in helping our customers navigate this complexity. It is a fast changing landscape, but we are really at the forefront of 10DLC registration, and our customers that are fully registered are getting really outstanding results. So let's talk about some real world progressive registrations and how those are working out. So we recently did a mayoral campaign. In fact, I think we completed that on August 12th, which was the very first day that political organizations were allowed to be registered with Campaign Registry. The TCR tells us that was the first fully compliant political organization in the country, and as a small progressive mayoral candidate in the Midwest. So the campaign verify process was pretty new at the time. It took about 2 days by email, and of course, $95. The registration, we registered them as political. AT&T came back and they gave us 3,000 segments per minute, which is very, very high throughput. T-Mobile in this instance took 3 additional days to review before they approved. But eventually they did approve, and they approved with no daily cap, which is really remarkable. And the most important thing for this mayoral campaign is that they have experienced 0 carrier filtering since being fully registered. So a great result there for the very, very first fully registered political campaign on the planet. We also did recently a state political party. Campaign Verify was sent the same day by email, which was great. Very good turnaround times there that we experienced. Again, very, very high throughput from AT&T. T-Mobile took a little bit longer on this one, 5 days of additional review. And then, we're still getting started with them on their peer-to-peer stuff. So state political party, fully registered and compliant. U.S. House campaign. This was obviously a federal election. It took 3 days via email. So you're kind of getting a sense of, 1 to 5 days via email for Campaign Verify, right? 5 additional days for review from T-Mobile, no daily cap, and extraordinarily high delivery rates, like 100%, 99.99%. We did a 501c4 recently. This was registered as a nonprofit and mixed use case, and Campaign Verify is not required for this use case. As you can see, the AT&T segments per minute is lower, maximum segments per minute is lower than the political use case, but no additional T-Mobile review was required. We did submit for a $40 additional vetting fee from another campaign registry vetting partner called Aegis in an attempt to increase their daily limit. So T-Mobile for this use case initially approved only 2,000 messages to their customers on a per day basis. But by paying an additional $40 in just a couple of hours, we were able to lobby on behalf of this client and get them increased to a 40,000 per day cap after that additional vetting. And of course, they like every other registered customer of ours, is seeing no carrier filtering and very, very high delivery rates. Small 501c3. So this is Campaign Verify not required, registered as a charity. They only pay $3 per month additional because the charity use case, I think previous slide we said it was $4, but it's actually been lowered to $3. So sorry for the confusion there, but the small 501c3 does have a 2,000 cap. Now, I think it's important here, T-Mobile has a 25% market share. Right. And so you can read this 2,000 cap as, if I'm going to send more than 8,000 texts a day, if this 501c3 was going to send more than 8,000 texts a day and 25% of them were T-Mobile, they'd be running up against that cap. This particular 501c3 doesn't send that many texts. They send, at most a couple of thousand a day. And so there was no reason for us to apply to increase that daily limit for them. They're fine, just as T-Mobile initially scored them. And again, great delivery. Yeah, and so a slightly larger size or mid-size 501c5, Campaign Verify not required. This was, again, registered as an NPO or nonprofit use case. But they were initially scored as 240 segments per minute. Which is not that high and was insufficient for their use case. But we went to Campaign Registry and we went to AT&T, and with a little bit of extra lobbying and the $40 Aegis vetting fee, we were able to get it increased to basically max throughput. And again, the T-Mobile daily cap of 2,000 was increased to uncapped, which was remarkable. So I think this just kind of shows you in the real world, how these organizations are being scored by the various carriers and how a partner like Prompt can work with the carriers and with Campaign Registry to increase the limits if and when that is necessary to do so. This is a really super interesting use case. So these are sitting members of the U.S. House of Representatives sending texts in an official government capacity, not campaign work. Very important. This is not campaign work. This is official government communication. And these are registered as government and public service. We have a dozen of these sitting members on our platform. 4,500 segments per minute, so pretty much maximum. No daily cap and no carrier filtering at all, and no Campaign Verify required because it is a sitting member of Congress. We kind of pioneered that use case along with Campaign Registry. There was a lot of back and forth there with Campaign Registry getting it right and getting the registration right, but it's a great thing to be able to offer these sitting members of Congress.
Awesome. Thank you for the overview of what you can actually expect. And really, we hit on the additional vetting that we can go through. So when you get registered, if you're thinking this is not enough for me, there are additional pathways for us to increase those throughputs for you as well. So now that we've covered that, we'll talk about the top 7 pitfalls and traps to avoid through this process, because I know we are always thinking, how can we not have to do these different things, but just we want to address these up front. So first and foremost, register with Campaign Verify early. As we said, it can take up to 10 days to receive your vetting token, and this is what really slows down the spin up process for texting now. So if you have the idea in your mind that you're probably going to text closer to the November election, just get that verification done now so that you don't have to delay your texting during those crucial days before the election. Make sure your traffic is registered, because that gray route traffic is going to be charged and filtered and fined starting this Friday. You're not going to want to share phone numbers between brands, campaigns, and use cases. So this kind of leads into point 4. If you're sitting on numbers that you've saved from prior campaigns, now is the time to release them. Snowshoeing or moving phone numbers from one campaign to the next is not allowed, and 10DLC is designed to eliminate this activity. And again, this is 10DLC. This is not your short codes. So if you use your short codes from election to election, that is totally fine. It's all about 10DLC. Don't think that you can just use toll-free phone numbers to avoid the hassle of registration, because toll-free has registration and vetting and opt-in requirements as well, and you're going to be faced with higher carrier fees with a toll-free number. 10DLC registration doesn't mean you just get to do whatever you want once you're registered. You'll still need to abide by federal and state texting laws, along with carrier restrictions when it comes to shaft content. So just keep in mind, those are still in place. This is just another way for us to avoid the carrier filtration that we've seen in the past. And then finally, complaints from recipients, so your carrier's customers, and high opt-out rates can lead to sanctioning or issues with carriers. And this is where you might see carrier filtration come back. So you're going to want to continue to choose your audience carefully and target them with the appropriate content. You aren't going to want to just pull every phone number that you could possibly get your hands on and continue to text. You're going to be faced with high opt-out rates, and that can lead to carrier filtration even when you are registered. And then finally, we're going to leave you with the political campaign checklist before we get to the Q&A portion. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A section now. But we want to make sure you have the tools that you need to go through this registration process. If you are a customer of Prompt, we handle all of this for you. You just have to give us a little bit of information. Other carriers or other providers might have different things they're supporting with, and some folks might have to go directly through their provider, so your Twilios, your Signal Wires, to do this registration process. But the first step is to make sure that your organization or campaign is registered with some sort of election entity. You will not be able to go through the vetting process if you are not a registered campaign. After that, once you're going through the onboarding process with Prompt, or if you're already a customer, you'll give us some information for the 10DLC registration process, and then we will go through and register you with Campaign Registry, take you through the Campaign Verify process, or any other additional verification that needs to be done. We will let you know when we've submitted your information to Campaign Verify, so that you'll want to keep your eyes on your email or your physical mail to get that vetting token. So we know when you've been approved, so we have an idea of when that email should have arrived, and we'll reach out again to make sure that we get that. And then as soon as we get the vetting token in our hands, we will put you through the campaign verification process, and then you'll be ready to provision your phone numbers and start texting. Once you start texting, you're still going to want to continue to monitor your outbound broadcasts just to make sure that delivery is not an issue. I did see a question previously in the Q&A, so I'm going to go ahead and answer that now. If you are a client of Prompt, you will have 100% transparency when texts are getting blocked or filtered. We have always provided that on our platform. When you send out a broadcast, you'll be able to see your error rate, and you'll be able to see who had that error rate and what the actual error code is that's associated with that blocking. So you will know exactly why you are getting any filtration or blocking because of that or through that process. We keep an eye to make sure that we're not getting super high error rates, but you'll always want to check to make sure that your messages are being delivered and that you're getting the interaction rate that you're hoping from your campaign, so that you can have the best conversations with your target audience. So we will be sending out a recording of this webinar as well as a link to all of the slides that we're covering. So on this last slide, we've got links to information about campaign registry, messaging principles and best practices, and the T-Mobile Code of Conduct. But with that, it is time to go through Q&A. So if you have any questions, please drop those in the Q&A or chat, and we'll start answering some of these questions. So the first question we have from Andrea is, what does it mean to do political activity? Is it only partisan political campaigns?
So the campaign registry doesn't care what kind of activity it's doing. It's more about what type of organization it is. So if you are a political organization and you are utilizing 10DLC for volunteer management, you still have to register as a political organization, even if you aren't directly reaching out for, constituent get out the vote kind of or fundraising kind of efforts. It's the type of organization, not the type of text that really determines how an organization is registered.
All right, so the next one is from Benjamin. With these changes, will there be improved transparency respecting which texts get blocked or filtered?
Yeah, so we have always provided full transparency in real time to our customers when sending texts via peer-to-peer or A2P. You can see every single text sent. You can see the status of that text, the deliverability of that text to the best of our ability. The one caveat that I would say is that carriers do not have to report that a text has been carrier filtered or blocked. They can do that and still report that the text was sent. And we know that in very high volume sketchy situations, they do not report the traditional 30,000 or 30,007 30007 error that no one wants to see that denotes that the message has been carrier filtered. They just block it and don't tell you. For registered traffic, that will not be the case. They're going to report if they start blocking you and you are a registered customer. We will get notified immediately from the carriers, and you'll see those error codes show up in the dashboard right away as well. So that is another benefit. No shadowy blocking, I would say, from the carriers. You're going to know it if it happens, and we'll be able to intervene on your behalf and talk to them about your use case and hopefully get it all sorted out. That has not happened as of yet. We have not received any carrier filtering for any of our registered customers as of yet.
Awesome. So another question from Benjamin: what constitutes a high opt-out rate? Yeah,
so it's a big black box at the carriers. They're not going to tell you what algorithm they're using to determine, high, low, medium kind of stuff, right? But in our experience, anything above 3 or 4%, and you're looking at potentially more scrutiny there. If it's 1% or less, I wouldn't be worried about it at all. And anything above 4 or 5%, you're going to start having issues, I think. But again, it's a black box, and the rules can change, on an ad hoc basis, and they don't have to tell anyone that they've changed the rules.
All right, the next question we have is from Ian. So if we utilize more than one program that needs to be registered with 10DLC, do we have to register and apply separately for each program, or are we registering once for our organization? So in this case, it's going to be a union. Okay, so Ian, I assume by program you mean like a platform like Prompt, or you're using Spoke, or you're using, I don't know. Hopefully you're using Prompt. If you're not, that's okay, but why aren't you using Prompt? But yeah, so the campaign registry is valid for a single brand on a single software provider. So if you are utilizing multiple software systems
then you will have to register separate use cases because you're going to be using separate phone numbers, right? And remember, the separate phone numbers are only valid for that particular software vendor. They're valid for that particular software application known as the CSP, right? And that particular phone number. So yeah, you're going to have to register twice, but I believe that you will only have to do campaign verify once.
All right, so that's all the open questions we have. We do have some time left, so if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to drop those in the Q&A or into the chat. And then while we are waiting, again, as I said, we'll be sending out the recording of this webinar as well as the slides that we covered today. And on the final page, we have a little bit more information about how you can ask follow-up questions. So Phil loves to take these questions. So on this last side, you'll find his personal cell phone and his email address, so you can reach out with questions about 10DLC. You can always reach out to, for support, if you are an existing client, you can reach out to your account manager or email support@prompt.io with any additional questions you have about 10DLC. So we are always here to help you navigate this process, because as we've said a few times today, it's constantly changing. Things are up in the air. So we are here to give you as much and as best information as we possibly can through this process. But it looks like we don't have any additional questions, but we can hang out for a minute in case anybody does have any additional questions.
Yeah, I would say that there have been quite a few people from previous webinars that have taken me up on, texting me or emailing me directly. Even if you're not a customer and you have no intention to be a customer, I am more than happy to help you with any of the questions that you have. I live, eat, and breathe 10DLC for the last 9 months, and I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on the ways that organizations should be thinking about registration. Hopefully, this seminar or this webinar was helpful in that regard. But if there's a particular question or situation that you want help navigating, just drop me a note and I'd be happy to get on the phone with you or text you back or get on a Zoom, as the case may be. Or you can come and buy me a cup of coffee in Seattle, and that could be fun too. So thank you all for attending today. It's been a real pleasure. If we can help your organization with texting, either A2P, P2P, or any kind of texting on short code, long code, or fully registered and compliant 10DLC, please give us a call.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Talk soon.